The stars had seen war for 3,000 years. The Zephyrian Empire had built their power on the bones of dead worlds and the tears of broken peoples. Their ships moved like metal snakes through space, long and dark and terrible. When they came to a new star system, the end was always the same. The people would see the ships and know their time was over. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his warship. The ship was called Doombringer, and it was 2 miles long. Its weapons could turn a planet into dust. Around him, other ships waited in the dark. 12 ships in total, each one bigger than most space stations. They had come to a small human world called New Austin. The Admiral looked at the reports on his screen. Humans were new to space travel. Their ships were small and weak. Their weapons were like toys compared to Zephyrian power. The Admiral had conquered 47 worlds in his long life. This would be number 48, and it would be easy. "Sir, we are in position," said his second-in-command. The officer was tall and thin like all Zephyrians. His skin was pale. Blue and his eyes were black. "The human colony has 20,000 people. They have one small warship in orbit." Admiral Kethver smiled. One ship. He had seen this before. The humans would look at his fleet and give up without a fight. They would beg for mercy. They would offer him anything to spare their lives. It was always the same with new species. They learned quickly that fighting the Empire was like trying to stop the tide with bare hands. "Send the message," he ordered. "Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender." Light years away from the battle that was about to begin, Captain Jake Morrison was having a normal day. He was 34 years old and had been in the Earth Defense Force for 12 years. Most of that time had been spent chasing pirates and checking trade routes. Nothing exciting ever happened on the frontier. The Defiant was his ship, and he loved her like family. She was not big or fancy. She was a destroyer, built for speed and fighting small battles. Her crew was 85. Good men and women who trusted him with their lives. They were far from Earth, protecting the outer colonies from whatever dangers space might bring. Jake was reading supply reports when the alarms started screaming. He dropped his coffee cup and ran to the bridge. His second-in-command, Lisa Hayes, was already there. Her face was white with shock. "Captain, you need to see this," she said. Her voice was shaking. "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts. Big ones." Jake looked at the main screen and felt his blood turn cold. 12 massive shapes were moving toward New Austin. Each one was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They moved in perfect formation like hunters closing in on prey. "How big are they?" Jake asked. "The smallest one is over 1 mile long, sir. The biggest one is almost 2 miles. We've never seen anything like them." Jake stared at the screen. His little ship was alone. The nearest Earth Defense Force ships were weeks away. Below them, New Austin spun slowly in space. 20,000 people lived on that world. Miners, farmers, shopkeepers, children. All of them were looking up at the stars right now, wondering if help would come. The communication came in on all channels at once. The voice was cold and had no feeling in it. It spoke perfect English, but something about it was wrong. It sounded like a machine trying to be human. "Human vessel, you will stop your engines and prepare to be taken. Your people will surrender now or we will destroy everything. You have 1 hour to decide." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. Lisa Hayes had tears in her eyes. She was thinking about her daughter back on Earth. Chief Engineer Amanda Torres was already checking weapon systems, even though they all knew it was hopeless. Dr. Nathan Pierce was trying to scan the alien ships, but their technology was too advanced to understand. "Captain," said Ensign Kelly Adams from the communication station, "I'm getting messages from the colony. They want to know what's happening. They're scared." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his oath as an officer. He had sworn to protect human worlds no matter what the cost. He thought about his crew, who would follow him anywhere. He thought about the 20,000 people below who had no one else to protect them. When he opened his eyes, his mind was clear. He knew what he had to do, even though it would probably kill them all. "Open a channel to the alien fleet," he sighed. Kelly's hands moved over her controls. Channel open, sir. Jake stood up straight and spoke in a calm voice that carried across space to the waiting enemy ships. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force ship Defiant. We will not surrender. We will not abandon these people. If you want this system, you'll have to go through us first. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Amanda Torres started laughing. It was not a happy laugh, but it was not scared either. It was the laugh of someone who had just decided to do something impossible. Well, Captain, she said, I always wondered what it would be like to be famous. Looks like we're about to find out. Admiral Kethver received the human message and felt something he had not felt in centuries, surprise, in 3,000 years of conquest. No one had ever said no to the Empire when they were so badly outnumbered. The smart thing for the humans to do was run away or surrender. Instead, they were choosing to fight. Did their translator break? Asked the second in command. Surely they understand they cannot win. The admiral looked at his screens again. One small human ship against 12 Zephyrian warships. The humans had no chance at all. Their weapons could not even scratch Zephyrian armor. Their ship would be destroyed in seconds once the fighting started, but they had chosen to fight anyway. Interesting, the admiral said quietly. Very interesting. On the Defiant, Jake was giving orders to his crew. They had 1 hour before the aliens attacked. 1 hour to prepare for a battle they could not win. But humans had always been good at doing impossible things. Amanda, I want every weapon system at full power. Take power from anywhere you need to. Yes, sir. I'll make this old girl hit harder than she ever has before. Lisa, plot us a course directly toward their biggest ship. If we're going to die, let's make sure they remember us. Course plotted, Captain. We'll be in weapons range in 45 minutes. Nathan, I want you to scan everything you can about those ships. Find me a weakness. I'm trying, sir, but their technology is decades ahead of ours. Kelly, send a message to New Austin. Tell them we're going to buy them as much time as we can. Tell them to use that time to run or hide or pray, whatever they think will help. Message sent, Captain. Jake sat down in his command chair and looked at the main screen. The alien ships were getting bigger as they came closer. Soon the shooting would start. Soon they would all probably be dead. But they would not die quietly. They would not go gentle into that good night. They were human, and humans did not give up. Ever, the hour was almost over, and the real fight was about to begin. The hour was over. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair and watched the alien ships grow larger on his screen. They looked like metal monsters in the darkness of space. Each one could destroy his ship with a single shot, but Jake felt calm. He had made his choice, and there was no going back now. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes checked her instruments one more time. The numbers were clear and terrible. 12 alien ships, each one armed with weapons that could crack planets. The smallest enemy ship was 3 times bigger than the Defiant. The biggest one was like a flying city made of death and steel. Captain, their lead ship is 2 miles long, Lisa said. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. Our biggest plasma cannons would barely scratch their paint. Chief Engineer Amanda Torres was working magic in the engine room. She had pushed the Defiant's power systems past every safety limit. Warning lights flashed red all over the ship, but the weapons were charged and ready. If they were going to die, they would die fighting. I've got the weapons running at 120% power, Amanda reported over the communication system. The ship won't like it, but we might actually hurt them before they kill us. Dr. Nathan Pierce was still scanning the alien ships, looking for anything that might help. His instruments showed technology that was decades ahead of human science. The alien ships had shields that could stop anything humans could throw at them. Their armor was made of materials that did not exist in human space. Their weapons could destroy cities from orbit. I'm not finding any weak spots, Captain, Nathan said. These ships are built like fortresses. We might as well be throwing rocks at them. Ensign Kelly Adams was listening to messages from New Austin. The people on the surface were afraid, but they were not giving up hope. They trusted the Defiant to protect them. They believed in Jake and his crew, even though everyone knew the odds were impossible. "Captain, the governor of New Austin wants to talk to you," Kelly said. "Put him on screen," Jake ordered. The main screen changed to show a gray-haired man in a simple work shirt. Governor Bill Thompson had been a miner before he became a politician. His face was hard and weathered, but his eyes were kind. "Captain Morrison," the governor said, "my people are scared, but they're not running. They say if you're brave enough to fight those monsters, they're brave enough to stand with you. Godspeed, son." The screen went back to showing the alien fleet. Jake felt a weight on his shoulders, but it was a good weight. These people were counting on him. His crew was counting on him. He would not let them down. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake said over the ship's communication system. "In a few minutes, we're going to fight the biggest battle any of us has ever seen. The enemy is stronger than us. They have bigger ships and better weapons, but they don't have what we have. They don't have heart. They don't have the will to fight for what's right. We're going to show them what humans are made of." The Defiant began to move toward the alien fleet. The little ship accelerated faster than it was designed to go. The crew felt the pressure pushing them into their seats. Most alien species would have been crushed by the force, but humans were built tough. They could take more punishment than most creatures in the galaxy. Admiral Kethver watched the human ship approach his fleet and felt something like amusement. The tiny vessel was moving directly toward his biggest guns. It was like watching a mouse attack a tiger. "Brave, perhaps, but completely stupid. Shall we destroy them now, sir?" asked his second in command. "Not yet," the admiral said. "I want to see what they plan to do. It has been many years since anyone surprised me." The Defiant came within weapons range of the alien fleet. Jake gave the order that would start the first battle between humans and the Zephyrian Empire. "Fire all weapons." The Defiant's plasma cannons lit up the darkness. Bright bolts of energy streaked across space toward the lead alien ship. The missiles followed, leaving trails of fire behind them. For a moment, it looked like the 4th of July in space. The weapons hit the alien ship's shields and disappeared, like raindrops hitting a window. The shields flickered for a second, then went back to full strength. The massive enemy ship did not even slow down. "No damage to the target," Lisa reported. "Our weapons aren't getting through their shields." Admiral Kethver nodded to his weapons. "Officer, fire a warning shot. Show them what real power looks like." A beam of pure energy lanced out from the Doombringer. It passed close enough to the Defiant to fry several sensor arrays. The human ship shook from the energy discharge, but it kept coming. Jake felt the ship shake around him. Half his instruments were dead, but the weapons still worked. Amanda was a miracle worker with machinery. "Warning shot, my foot," Amanda said over the communication system. "If that had hit us, we'd be space dust right now." The Defiant kept charging toward the alien fleet. Jake ordered evasive maneuvers, and Lisa made the ship dance between the enemy weapons. Beams of death energy passed within meters of the hull. Any one of them could have vaporized the entire ship, but somehow they kept missing. "How are we still alive?" Nathan asked. "Because we're too crazy to die," Amanda laughed. "And because Lisa is the best pilot in the fleet." Lisa was sweating as she flew the ship through the alien fire. She had never flown like this before. She was pushing the Defiant past every limit, making it do things that should have been impossible. The little ship twisted and turned like a living thing, avoiding death by inches. "I can't keep this up forever," Lisa said. "They're learning our patterns." Jake had an idea. It was a terrible idea, but it might work. "Amanda, can you overload our plasma cannons, make them hit harder?" "I can try, but it might blow us up," Amanda said. "Do it. We need to hurt them." Amanda worked her magic again. She took power from life support, from the artificial gravity, from everything that was not essential. She fed all that power into the weapons. The plasma cannons began to glow with dangerous energy. "Weapons overloaded and ready," Amanda reported. "This is going to hurt them or us." "Maybe both." The Defiant was now flying between the alien ships. The enemy vessels were so big that the human ship looked like a gnat buzzing around elephants. Jake waited until they were close to the biggest ship, then gave the order. Fire everything. This time, the plasma bolts were different. They burned brighter and hit harder. When they struck the alien shields, something unexpected happened. The shields flickered and went down for a few seconds. The overcharged weapons actually damaged the alien ship's hull. Admiral Kethver felt his ship shake from the impact. Alarms started ringing on his bridge. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone had actually hurt his flagship. Damage report, he ordered. Hull breach on deck 7, his officer reported. Shields are back online, but they were down for 4 seconds. How did they do that? The admiral stared at the human ship on his screen. It was tiny compared to his fleet, but it had just done something impossible. It had hurt him. Interesting, he said quietly. Very interesting indeed. The Defiant was paying the price for its success. The overloaded weapons had burned out half the ship's systems. The hull was cracked in 3 places. The engines were running on emergency power. We can't do that again, Amanda reported. The ship won't take it. Jake looked at his battered crew and his damaged ship. They had hurt the enemy, but it was not enough. The alien fleet was barely scratched, and his ship was falling apart, but they were still alive, and they were still fighting. That had to count for something. Keep us moving, Lisa, Jake ordered. Make us hard to hit. The battle was just beginning, and already it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A single human ship was fighting an entire alien fleet, and somehow, impossibly, it was still in the fight. The aliens were about to learn something new about humans. They never gave up, no matter how bad things looked. Admiral Kethver stood on his bridge and watched the small human ship dance between his weapons. The tiny vessel moved like nothing he had ever seen before. It twisted and turned in ways that should have killed its crew, but somehow they kept flying. They kept fighting. Sir, the human ship is moving at dangerous speeds, his tactical officer reported. The force of those turns should crush their bones. The admiral nodded slowly. He had conquered many species over the centuries. The Altarians were tough warriors, but they gave up when they saw his fleet. The Draconians were fierce fighters, but they knew when they were beaten. These humans were different. They were doing things that should be impossible. How many hits? Have we scored on them? He asked. 17 direct hits, sir. But they keep fighting? Their ship should have been destroyed 10 minutes ago. Kethver watched the human ship take another blast that would have vaporized most vessels. The little ship spun like a leaf in a storm, but it straightened out and kept coming. Black smoke poured from holes in its hull, but its weapons were still firing. What are they made of? He whispered on the Defiant. Captain Jake Morrison was learning what his ship and crew could really do when pushed to their limits. The bridge was filled with smoke and sparks. Half the lights were out. The artificial gravity kept cutting in and out, making everyone float for a few seconds at a time. Hull breach on deck 3, shouted Nathan Pierce. We're losing air fast. Seal it off, Jake ordered. How many people are trapped back there? 12 crew members, sir. They're cut off from the rest of the ship. Jake felt sick. 12 good people were going to die because of his decision to fight. But he could not think about that now. He had to keep the ship flying and keep his remaining crew alive. Captain, we've lost main power to the port weapons, Amanda Torres reported from the engine room. I'm trying to reroute through auxiliary systems, but it's going to take time. How much time? Jake asked. 10 minutes if we're lucky. 20 if we're not, Jake looked at the main screen. The alien ships were closing in on all sides. They had been firing at the Defiant for 15 minutes, and they were getting better at predicting where the human ship would go next. Soon, even Lisa's amazing flying would not be enough to keep them alive. Lisa, can you get us to that asteroid field? Jake pointed to a cluster of rocks floating near the edge of the star system. I can try, Captain, but we'll have to go right through the middle of their fleet. Do it, we need cover. Lisa Hayes had been flying ships since she was 16 years old. She had never been in a real battle before today, but she was learning fast. The Defiant responded to her commands like a living thing. When she told it To turn left, it turned left. When she told it to dive, it dove. The ship seemed to know that its life depended on her skill. The Defiant shot forward like a bullet fired from a gun. It passed between two massive alien ships so close that Jake could see the enemy weapons tracking them. Energy beams lit up the space around them, but Lisa kept the ship moving too fast for the aliens to get a good shot. Incoming missiles! Nathan shouted. Jake watched 12 alien missiles chase his ship across the battlefield. Each missile was bigger than a fighter plane and moved faster than anything humans had ever built. They were closing in fast. Amanda, give me everything the engines. Have, Jake ordered. Sir, if I push them any harder, they might explode. If you don't push them harder, we're all dead anyway. The Defiant's engines roared with power they were never designed to handle. The ship shot forward so fast that the pursuing missiles could not keep up. 3 of them exploded when they hit each other trying to follow the human ship's impossible turns. Admiral Kethfer watched the display with growing amazement. The human ship had just outrun his best missiles. It had flown through the middle of his fleet and somehow avoided being destroyed. Now it was heading for the asteroid field where his big ships would have trouble following. Sir, should we pursue them? His second-in-command asked. Of course we pursue them, the Admiral said. But carefully, these humans are full of surprises. The Defiant reached the asteroid field and disappeared among the floating rocks. Jake finally had a moment to think about what they were doing. His ship was badly damaged. His crew was tired and scared. 12 people were already dead. But they were still fighting, and that had to mean something. Damage report, he ordered. Nathan looked at his instruments and shook his head. It's bad, Captain. We've lost 40% of our hull integrity. Life support is working, but barely. We have enough air for maybe 2 hours. And the weapons are running on emergency power. What about the aliens? Did we hurt them? We damaged their flagship and destroyed 2 of their smaller ships. But they still have 10 ships left, and we're down to our last few shots. Jake nodded. They had done better than anyone thought possible, but it was not enough. The aliens would find them soon, and when they did, the fight would be over. Captain, Kelly Adams said from her communication station, I'm getting a message. From the alien fleet, they want to talk? Jake was surprised. Put it on screen. The main screen showed Admiral Kethfer standing on his bridge. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and black eyes. He looked like he had lived for 1,000 years, and his voice was cold as ice. Human Captain, the Admiral said, you have fought well. Better than any species I have faced in 3,000 years, but this battle is over. Your ship is dying. Your crew is tired. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick and painless. Jake stood up slowly. His uniform was torn and dirty. His face was covered with cuts from flying debris, but his eyes were bright with determination. Admiral, Jake said, you don't understand humans very well. We don't surrender. We don't give up. We don't quit, even when we're beaten. You want this system? You want these people? You're going to have to kill every last one of us to get them. The Admiral stared at Jake for a long moment. You are willing to die for strangers? For people you barely know? They're not strangers, Jake said. They're human. That makes them family. And humans protect their family. The communication ended. Admiral Kethfer stood on his bridge and thought about what the human captain had said. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had never met anyone like these humans. They fought like demons when they were outnumbered. They refused to quit when they were beaten. They were willing to die for people they barely knew. Sir, we've found their ship, his tactical officer reported. They're hiding behind a large asteroid. We can destroy them with one shot. The Admiral looked at the tactical display. The human ship was trapped. There was nowhere left to run. But somehow he knew the battle was not over. These humans would keep fighting until the very end. Take us in slowly, he ordered. I want to see what they do next. The Defiant sat in the shadow of a massive asteroid, its engines quiet and its weapons powered down. Jake gathered his senior officers in the briefing room for what might be their last meeting. All right, people, he said. They've got us cornered. Our ship is falling apart, and we're almost out of ammunition. Anyone have any ideas? Amanda Torres smiled despite everything. Well, Captain, we've got one thing left that might work. But you're not going to like it. What is it? We rammed them. Full speed right into their biggest ship. If we're going to die anyway, let's take some of them with us. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Nathan Pierce started laughing. You know, what? That's crazy enough to work? They won't expect it? Jake looked around the table at his officers. These were good people who trusted him with their lives. They were willing to follow him into certain death because they believed in what they were fighting for. All right then, Jake said. Let's give them a fight they'll never forget. The Defiant came out from behind the asteroid like a missile shot from hell. Captain Jake Morrison had made his choice, and there was no turning back now. His ship was dying, his crew was battered, but they were going to make their last stand. Count, all power to engines. Jake shouted over the noise of alarms and braking machinery. Everything we have left. Amanda Torres was working miracles in the engine room. She had torn apart safety systems and emergency backups to feed power to the engines. The ship was shaking itself apart, but it was moving faster than it ever had. Captain, the engines are at 150%, Amanda reported. We've got maybe 3 minutes before they explode. That's all we need, Jake said. He opened the ship's communication system so everyone could hear him. All hands, this is the captain. We're making our final run. It's been an honor serving with all of you. Today we show the galaxy what humans are made of. The Defiant shot across space toward the Doombringer like a comet made of metal and fury. The alien flagship was 2 miles long and built like a fortress, but Jake was aiming for its middle section where the weapons were thickest. If they were going to die, they would take as many aliens with them as possible. Admiral Kethver watched the human ship approach and felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear, not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. These humans were doing something no species had ever done before. They were choosing to die rather than surrender. Sir, the human ship is on a collision course. His tactical officer shouted, They're going to ram us. All weapons, fire at will, the Admiral ordered. Stop them. Every gun on every alien ship opened fire at once. The space between the fleets lit up like a star-going supernova. Energy beams and missiles filled the darkness, all aimed at the tiny human ship that dared to challenge an empire, but the Defiant kept coming. Lisa Hayes flew the ship through the storm of weapons fire like she was dancing with death itself. Beams passed so close to the hull that they burned off pieces of armor. Missiles exploded all around them, but somehow the ship kept flying. Hull breach on deck 5, Nathan Pierce reported. We're losing pressure fast. Seal it off, Jake ordered. How much further to target? 30 seconds at current speed. The Defiant was falling apart around them. Sparks flew from broken control panels. The lights flickered on and off. The artificial gravity failed completely and everyone floated in their seats. But the engines kept roaring and the ship kept flying toward its target. Admiral Kethver realized that his weapons were not going to stop the human ship in time. The little vessel was too fast, too determined, too crazy to be stopped by normal tactics. Brace for impact, he ordered his crew, but Jake Morrison was not done surprising him yet. At the last possible second, the Defiant suddenly changed course. Instead of ramming the Doombringer head-on, it dove underneath the massive ship and flew along its belly, firing every weapon it had left directly into the alien ship's hull. The surprise attack caught the aliens completely off guard. The Defiant's weapons, still overcharged from Amanda's engineering magic, punched through the Doombringer's armor in a dozen places. Explosions bloomed along the alien ship's hull like deadly flowers. What are they doing? Kethver's second-in-command gasped. The Admiral understood immediately. The humans were not trying to destroy his ship with a suicide run. They were trying to cripple it and survive to fight another day. Even in their final moments, they were thinking like warriors, not like martyrs. The Defiant finished its attack run and shot out from under the Doombringer, but the effort had cost them everything. The ship's engines finally gave up and died. The weapons were burned out and useless. The hull was cracked in so many places that it looked like a broken egg. Jake looked around his bridge and saw the faces of his crew. They were tired, hurt, and scared, but they were alive. Against all odds, they had survived their suicide run and actually damaged the alien flagship. "Damage report," he said quietly. Nathan checked his instruments, most of which were not working. "Anymore. We're dead in space, Captain. No engines, no weapons, no shields. Life support is working, but barely. We've got maybe an hour of air left." Jake nodded. They had done everything they could. They had fought harder than anyone thought possible. Now, all they could do was wait and see what the aliens would do next. On the Doombringer, Admiral Kethfer was getting damage reports from all over his ship. The human attack had been surgical and precise. They had hit the weapons control centers, the shield generators, and the main computer core. His flagship was still flying, but it was badly hurt. "Sir, we have fires on 12 decks," his damage control officer reported. "The main weapons array is offline. Shield generators are operating at 30%. That little ship hurt us badly." The Admiral stared at the human vessel floating helplessly in space. It was dark and quiet now, no longer a threat to his fleet. But the damage it had done would take weeks to repair. One small ship had fought his entire fleet and actually won a kind of victory. "Sir, shall we destroy them now?" his weapons officer asked. Kethfer was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the 3,000 years of his empire's conquests. He thought about all the species that had surrendered without a fight. He thought about the human captain who had refused to give up even when faced with certain death. "No," he said finally. "Open a communication channel." The main screen on the Defiant flickered to life, showing Admiral Kethfer standing on his damaged bridge. The alien looked different now. There was something in his black eyes that had not been there before: respect. "Captain Morrison," the Admiral said, "in 3,000 years of conquest, I have never seen anything like what you and your crew have done today. You fought 12 ships with one. You damaged my flagship with a vessel that should have been destroyed in the first minute of battle. You refused to surrender even when death was certain." Jake stood up slowly. His uniform was torn and burned. His face was covered with blood and soot, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "We did what any human would do, Admiral. We protected our people." "Yes," Kethfer said. "You did, and that is why I'm going to do something I have never done before in 3,000 years of war. I'm going to let you live." Jake was shocked. "What?" "You and your crew will be rescued. Your wounded will be treated. Your ship will be repaired if possible. And then you will be released to return to your people with a message." "What message?" Admiral Kethfer looked directly at Jake through the screen. "Tell your people that the Zephyrian Empire has learned something new today. We have learned that some things are worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. We have learned that courage and determination can sometimes overcome superior firepower. We have learned to respect humans." The communication ended, leaving Jake and his crew staring at a blank screen. They could hardly believe what they had just heard. The aliens were going to let them live. "Captain," Kelly Adams said from her communication station, "I'm getting messages from all over the galaxy. The battle was broadcast on subspace radio. Everyone saw what we did here today." Jake sat down heavily in his command chair. His ship was broken, his crew was hurt, but they were alive. More importantly, they had sent a message to the galaxy. They had shown that humans would not go quietly into slavery. They would fight, no matter what the odds. "Well," Jake said to his crew, "I guess we're famous now." Amanda Torres laughed from the engine room. "Famous for being the craziest people in the galaxy. I can live with that." In the distance, alien rescue ships were approaching to pick up the survivors. The battle was over, but the war for human freedom was just beginning. And thanks to the crew of the Defiant, the galaxy now knew that humans were not easy prey. They were something much more dangerous than that. They were fighters who would never give up. 3 months after the Battle of New Austin, Captain Jake Morrison stood in front of the largest gathering of alien ambassadors the galaxy had ever seen. His uniform was new and clean, with the gold stars of an admiral on his shoulders. The scars on his face told the story of that terrible day when one small ship had changed everything. The great hall on the neutral world of Haven Station was filled with representatives from 100 different species. Tall, thin Zephyrians sat next to short, furry Altarians. The lizard-like Draconians shared tables with the crystal beings from the Outer Rim. All of them had come to see the human who had done the impossible. Admiral Kethver sat at the head table, looking very different from the proud conqueror he had been just a few months ago. The Battle of New Austin had changed him too. For the first time in his long life, he had met an enemy he could respect. Now he was here to make peace, not war. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. 6 months ago, most of you had never heard of humans. We were just another young species taking our first steps into space. Today, we are here to talk about the future of our galaxy. In the audience, beings who had been slaves for centuries listened with hope in their hearts. The broadcast of the Battle of New Austin had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Everyone had seen the little human ship fight against impossible odds. Everyone had heard Captain Morrison refuse to surrender even when death was certain. Jake continued his speech. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled through fear for 3,000 years. They conquered worlds by showing overwhelming force and demanding surrender. It worked because no one had ever said no to them before. We said no, and everything changed. On the prison world of Kepler-7, Altarian slaves had watched the battle on smuggled screens. When they saw the Defiant refuse to give up, they began to hope. Within weeks, they had organized the first rebellion in their history. The Zephyrian guards, used to dealing with broken spirits, did not know how to handle people who suddenly believed in freedom. The rebellion spread from world to world, like a plague that the Empire could not stop. The Centaurians rose up on their mining planets. The Draconians formed resistance cells in their cities. Even the peaceful crystal beings began to refuse Zephyrian orders. The Empire discovered something important that day, Jake said to the gathered ambassadors. They learned that ruling through fear only works as long as people stay afraid. Once people stop being afraid, the whole system falls apart. Admiral Kethver stood up slowly. The alien leader looked older than he had before the battle. The weight of 3,000 years of conquest was heavy on his shoulders. "The human speaks the truth," Kethver said in his cold, mechanical voice. "My empire was built on the belief that superior force could overcome any enemy. Captain Morrison and his crew proved us wrong. They showed us that there are things more powerful than weapons: courage, determination, the willingness to die for what you believe in." Jake looked at the alien admiral with respect. It took courage for Kethver to admit that his empire had been wrong. It took wisdom to choose peace over continued war. The Zephyrian Empire offers a new compact to all species. Kethver continued, "We will release all conquered worlds. We will withdraw our occupation forces. We will pay reparations for the damage we have caused. In return, we ask only for the chance to join the galactic community as equals, not as conquerors." The hall erupted in excited chatter. Species that had been slaves for generations suddenly saw freedom within their grasp. It seemed too good to be true, but the sincerity in the alien admiral's voice was clear. An Altarian delegate stood up. She was small and covered in soft gray fur, but her voice was strong. "How do we know you will keep these promises? How do we know this is not another trick?" Kethver looked at Jake, then back at the Altarian. "Because we have learned to fear something worse than death. We have learned to fear dishonor. The humans showed us what honor looks like. Now we must learn to live with honor ourselves." Jake smiled slightly. The Altarian delegate raises a good point. Trust must be earned, not given. That's why we propose a gradual process. The Empire will release one world each month, starting with the ones that have been occupied the longest. Earth will provide observers to make sure the withdrawals happen as promised. Over the next hours, the details were worked out. The Zephyrian Empire would begin the largest withdrawal in galactic history. Billions of beings would be freed from slavery. It would take years to complete, but the process would start immediately. Back on Earth, people watched the negotiations on their screens with amazement. A few months ago, most humans did not even know that aliens existed. Now their species was helping to reshape the galaxy. Lisa Hayes, now a captain herself, was giving interviews to reporters who wanted to know what it had been like on the Defiant during the battle. She always gave the same answer. We were scared, but we did our job. That's what humans do. Amanda Torres had become famous across the galaxy as the engineer who had made the impossible possible. She was now teaching at the Earth Space Academy, showing young engineers how to think creatively under pressure. Her most popular class was called Making Miracles with Spare Parts. Dr. Nathan Pierce was working with alien scientists to share technology and knowledge. The medical advances alone would save millions of lives across the galaxy. The Zephyrians, it turned out, were excellent doctors when they were not trying to conquer people. Kelly Adams had become Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. Her job was to help newly freed worlds learn how to govern themselves. It was hard work, but she loved it. Every world that gained its freedom was a victory for everything the Defiant had fought for. The crew members who had died in the battle were not forgotten. A memorial was built on New Austin, listing their names and their sacrifice. The inscription read simply, "They stood their ground." Below it, in smaller letters, was the message that had become humanity's motto among the stars: humans underestimate at your own peril. But the real monument to their sacrifice was not made of stone or metal. It was the freedom that spread across the galaxy like ripples from a throne stone. Every world that was liberated, every species that regained its independence, every being that could now choose its own future, they were all part of the legacy of the Defiant. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new space station that orbited New Austin. Through the viewport, he could see ships from a dozen different worlds coming and going. Humans worked alongside Altarians and Draconians and dozens of other species. The galaxy was learning to live in peace. Amanda Torres joined him at the viewport. She had grown gray hair in the months since the battle, but her eyes were still bright with enthusiasm. "Any regrets, Admiral?" she asked. Jake thought about the question. The battle had cost them so much. Good people had died. His ship had been destroyed. His crew had been scattered across the galaxy on different assignments. But the galaxy was free, and that had to count for something. "No regrets," he said finally. "We did what we had to do." "Even if we had known how it would end? Even if we had known we would survive?" Jake smiled. "Especially then. Because if we had known we would survive, we might not have fought as hard." "Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to save anything," Amanda nodded. The galaxy learned something important that day. They learned that humans are not easy to conquer. But more importantly, they learned that freedom is worth fighting for, no matter what the odds. In the distance, a human ship was departing for the Outer Rim, carrying supplies to a newly liberated world. The galaxy was still healing from 3,000 years of conquest, but it was healing. And humans were helping to show the way. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it had started with one small ship that refused to give up.